I didn't come onto the scene until it would have been like the dark year or so after Marsha's disappearance. And new people had come in here and they literally had spray painted the place black, everything black. And so that was that incarnation for about a year, and it was doomed to fail. But that it sort of it almost sort of all the black paint in here almost kind of sort of created a blank canvas of sorts for the next group of guys that came in, and they were a couple young post-college, college age guys, and they loved reggae music and they loved the Grateful Dead, and they opened up the Nye Bengi, and it was embraced by the community because it was almost like, all right, the Underground Railroad's back again now. It's called the Nye Bengi, so it was that incarnation for a little while, and then they sold the place to a younger guy, but he was more punk rock and metal, and there's a little darker edge to it, and which I loved all the amalgamations of what the space was. I liked because I was one of those guys where I would just come down. I didn't, whether it was a reggae band playing or whether it was a punk rock band, I just came down because it was just a great scene to be in, and so yes, I was very much a patron. Had a lot of my friends were musicians. A lot of my friends were. This was their home. When this building was condemned in 1998, it sent shockwaves through our community. From the musicians to the patrons or whatnot. Like you're like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? That goes back to, the conversation I'm having with my brother, and he's like, maybe she'll sell the place. So when I talked to DL, I said, hey, you've got a condemned building on your hands. What's your plans? You've got a lot of people that are. That this is their home, that, and would you consider selling it? And she says, I would, but only one condition: you have to keep it a music venue. You have to keep that, and that was obviously a no-brainer because that's what we wanted to do. And at that point in time, when I got her blessing, I approached the city, and my family at that point in time, the city recognized a lot of the work we were doing on some older houses that were sort of run down and us fixing them up. I go, everything that you saw going on at Nye Bengi and the Underground Railroad, I go, you're going to still see the Mohawks, you're going to still see the Dreads, you're going to see lots of colorful characters that will come down here. I said, those things are going to still be present. I go, all I want to do is make sure that you don't have to worry about this space, that it's a safe space that the fire department doesn't have to worry about, code enforcement doesn't have to worry about. So I said, hold my hand through this process and tell me what we need to do to get it open again. Because at that point in time, this building it needed a lot of love. So they were just glad that somebody was coming in to, a lot of people was like, tear them down, which is ridiculous. Because these things are are solid as a rock. So, it just needed about 6 or 7 months of love and cleaning them up. And when you do that, you expose treasures from, the architectural dynamic of tin ceilings and the brick walls. That plays a big part. And I think those are some of the things that Marsha sort of recognized too when she was here. Like those elements that were like, wow, this is just the space, or the space itself sort of has a soul to it. And I think those are probably the things that sort of spoke to Marsha when she identified this as like, this can be a really, really cool place. We could really build something here. I never knew the Marsha story until I bought the building. I'd heard the name, but it wasn't until I bought the building that you'd get people like, did you find Marsha? Did you find Marsha? Where did you see Marsha when you were gutting the place? And at that point in time, you started getting, I don't want to say it was like a weight on my shoulders, but it was like, oh wow, this is some big shoes to sort of fill. And I found myself laughing because I find myself a pretty dull and kind of sterile, generic kind of, not too exciting person. So to follow in somebody's footsteps like that, it was, it was fun. But I never pretended to be anything like Marsha because certainly that would have been laughable. Marsha would be the first to tell you that this is a place about everybody else. Certainly, Marsha was that energy, so to speak, that gathered this motley crew of individuals that said, hey, we're going to open up this bar. But I think so that in itself is the tribute to Marsha is the fact that this is everybody's place. That's what she would have wanted. There's so many people that have said to me that if there wasn't a 123 Pleasant Street, I would have never stayed in Morgantown. I would just, there wouldn't have been that outlet for me to see music or to be sort of connected with a community that was just sort of, it's a subculture of Morgantown. I'd say, when we have shows down here that we might have 300 people down here, there might be times where we, of those 300 people, 200 of these people are coming from outside of Morgantown. So there's a lot of stuff that's just lost on the general populace of Morgantown, of what this place is. And people can be who they want to be down here, as long as you walk in this room and you carry respect for other people. That started back in the 80s through the Underground Railroad. I mean, that's hence the reason Marsha called this place the Underground Railroad, because it was a safe haven for people. And I think, for a young college kid, for instance, or even a teenager that might come down here for a show, they immediately recognize that this is not any regular, usual bar that they would see maybe up the street or whatever. It's a melting pot of sorts of different ages, different walks of life, and it's certainly a welcoming place if you carry empathy and acceptance in your heart. And I mean, that might be a little hokey, but there's truth to that.
It continues to embody so much of what and who Marsha was. I mean, LJ's just been amazing in the way he's really held that space and the openness and the acceptance, and
even keeping a sign up of Harriet Tubman is a statement in itself of acceptance and just anti-racism and all of the things that Marsha believed in when she created the original Underground Railroad and the Dry House. And
one thing that's very different, doesn't smell like stale beer anymore.
Or cigarettes.
I think it just means a lot to a lot of people over the last 40 plus years. And it's a great place. It's a great place, and it's responsibility to live up to that, that expectation, so to speak. And again, it's easy to do because we can do it by committee, and so it's a good place to be. I'm certainly I'm humbled by that.